Red Bull has some serious talent, but can anybody actually keep up with the Iowa Hawkeyes, or are they just going to sweep NC State, Mizzou, Lehigh, and the rest of the competition away? I have lineup projections, score predictions, and more. So let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name is Josiah, and welcome to Fanco Wrestling, your source for college wrestling news and discussion. And with the Collegiate Wrestling Duals coming up, I had to dive into this part 2 of the series, actually. So there's Part 1, which is the blue pool. This is the red pool, which I'm diving into exactly what I think is going to happen at the event. And man, this is going to be, quite the event. And as a reminder, this is exactly who are in each pool with some top teams in the country. Well, Iowa, one of the questions I have right off the top is Iowa going to wrestle a full squad? Are we going to see Spencer Lee and Michael Kemmerer? I really hope that we do, because if they do, man, they're just going to show up and be extremely dominant. As a reminder, this event is happening December 20th and 21st. You can watch live on Rockfin. But I already talked about that in the other video, so I don't want to bore you anymore. So let's talk about the red pool. The red pool, part 1, I guess, or subsection 1, whatever you want to call it. First side of the pool. Binghamton, NC State, and Mizzou. Binghamton, I think, can win a few matchups, but NC State and Mizzou they're top 10 for a reason. And that's why I pulled up the NC State and Mizzou lineups right away, because we're just going to get into it, right? I think it's going to go back and forth on the bottom here. Jacob Camacho and Certain, that'll be a good match. NC State should get a win at 133. Alan Hart and Ryan Jack, that should be a pretty interesting matchup as well. But then we really get into the meat of some of NC State's lineup. Tariq Wilson, I always enjoy watching him wrestle. I think he's a super fun wrestler to watch. I think he's going to really be entertaining in a duel against Mizzou as well. But there are, honestly, for the most part, there are a lot of mismatches. There are a lot of All-Americans on both teams, but they're not all set up head-to-head. So there are a lot of kind of mismatches, right, where the All-American is the more likely to win for one team versus a guy who has an All-American before. But still some elite wrestlers and an elite team. The best match I think that we're going to see is going to be Hayden Hidlay and Peyton Mocco. And if you missed the match between Mocco and Mekhi Lewis, that's one that really was an eye-opener once I saw Peyton Mocco, who I always thought, I thought he was going to be a tough wrestler this season, but man, he really took Mekhi Lewis, NCAA champion of Virginia Tech, to the limit there. So that's going to be a great match here. I also think Elam and Trumbull should be a tight duel at 197, and it's going to come down to the last match. But both teams are going to need to look for bonus along the way. But I think that NC State ultimately wins that last match at heavyweight and wins 16-15 to advance to the Day 2 finals. So who will they be going up against? Well, Iowa, Lehigh, and Central Michigan are all in Pool 2. There's not a lot to say here. Iowa is going to be the dominant team. Assuming that they bring their full squad, they bring their full lineup, I think we're going to see them dominate for the most part through Day 1. I think they're going to win by big margins and may not even let up losses in certain scenarios. Against Lehigh, I think they win 34-3. And then against Central Michigan, I think that they can honestly potentially shut them out. Again, it depends on who they wrestle, right? It depends on who they wrestle. Now, Lehigh versus Central Michigan, now that's a duel you got to be watching out for. I think that's going to be seriously interesting, because Lehigh is they're in the top 25 and they have a good win against Pitt, but also Central Michigan, I think, is a team that's right there. And if they could beat Lehigh. Now, this is honestly a matchup between two hard knocks, even though I think that Lehigh is ultimately going to win the duel 18-12 and advance to the third and fourth place match. They're two hard knock teams that are going to be, they're gritty. They're going to be wrestling tough every match. You're probably going to see mostly decisions throughout the majority of that matchup. But that sets up a Day 2, which is what should you be watching in the placement rounds? And I want to remind you that if you haven't downloaded the score sheets for this event, I have exact score sheets. You can fill in your predictions for the event, as well as exactly what happens for every single match. This is totally free. You can download this for free on FancoWrestlingShop.com. It's linked up down in the description below for you to download. But here's what you should be watching in the placement rounds. First of all, Mizzou and Lehigh should be a really good duel. Really good duel. Lehigh's like right there, but Mizzou is just honestly all around. They are a better team, and that's why I think they will ultimately get the better of Lehigh by a score of 20-12. So let's move into the finals. And actually, how dumb am I? I forgot Central Michigan and Binghamton. Now, Central Michigan and Binghamton should also be a good match. I think that CMU ultimately wins 22-12. So both those third and fourth place and fifth and sixth place matches should be relatively close and good matches. But really the one you're going to be watching out for is the finals, Iowa versus NC State. Number 1 Iowa versus number 5 NC State. And man, if NC State can beat Mizzou, who's saying they can't pull a good duel against Iowa? Now, Iowa's stacked down below, right? Spencer Lee, Austin DeSanto, Ironman, Max Murin. They have a stacked lineup, but they're really stacked down below. But then, those middleweights for NC State are pretty darn tough. The Hiley brothers are going to be good. The Tariq Wilson should have a pretty good match against Max Murin. I think that he can beat him, but I'm just saying it should be a good match, right? Then 197, Jacob Warner just lost to Bastida. Maybe Trumbull. I think he's a guy who is capable of upsets and can definitely maybe upset Jacob Warner. I think that overall, it still won't be enough, though. I think that Iowa ultimately wins 23-13. 23-13 is my prediction. And they win their side of the collegiate duels in the red pool. So what's going to happen in the blue pool is the next question, with Virginia Tech, Arizona State, Penn State, Cornell. If you haven't seen that part of the video, you can check out the part 1 of the blue pool right here, or you can download the college wrestling score sheets for free at FancoWrestlingShop.com up above. Enjoy the duels.